Cool. So let's jump right into it, man. Let me grab your thoughts because man, shoot, you've been watching Jaron Ennis since he was, real young. So, give me your thoughts on the whole situation with the IBF stripping Crawford of his title, man.
Um, you know, I think that Crawford and Ennis are both receiving unnecessary criticism. Uh, for Crawford's part, he just became champion a couple of months ago, and obviously he had the rematch clause in there with Earl Spence. So if you're realistic, you know that Crawford is not going to uh blow the rematch with Spence
Mhm.
just to fight Ennis. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not nobody in history would do that. Coming off of that performance, you get to fight the same guy again, for big money again. This time you're the A side. Like he's not going to do that. So, but anybody who thought that Crawford was going to say, you know what, I'm going to fight Boots, it's just not realistic. That's not how boxing works. And he just became champion 3 months ago. Boots, on the other hand, all he did what he was supposed to do, and that is beat everybody they put in front of him in convincing fashion, become, a very, very hot contender that a lot of people think is, the second coming of a great fighter at 147 pounds, which is a glamorous division, probably the best division in the history of boxing. And and now he's getting scrutiny for being an email champion. But like, I'm not one of those people that say belts don't matter. What are you supposed to do if you become the mandatory and you don't get a title shot and you wait over a year for your title shot and then a fighter gets stripped and you get the belt? Nobody still has given me a good explanation on what Boots is supposed to do. Say no, I'm not going to take the belts. Well, guess what? Um, Belts do matter for all of the experts out there. When you get a real contract from a promoter or a network, winning a belt and defending the title, you get more money in your contract than you do when you're going for the title. Like there's stages of pay that you get. Like title defenses, you make a certain amount. Going for the title, you make a certain amount. 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 8 rounds, 10 rounds. Anybody could tell you that. So, him winning the title is a big deal. Every fighter, dreams of hearing and the new, and he was robbed of that. So I'm not like, I still don't know what the kid is supposed to do. Crawford or Boots shouldn't be getting any criticism over this. This is the business of boxing. I think a quick fix would be, um, again, I believe in belts. You get more money for belts and more prestige. But I believe that all of the interim champions and regular champions, all that stuff needs to be done away with. You either the WBO, WBA, WBC, or IBF world champion, period. And then ring, they got their own thing in lineal or whatever. But like these interim champions, that's what's creating all of this kind of stuff. Like and the word interim, there's been guys that's been interim champions for like 2 years, 3 years. You're not an interim champion anymore if you've been the interim champion over a year or two. It's ridiculous. So that's what's creating all of this. If you just simply just have world champions, and when a guy can't defend his belt for let's say a year and a half, he gets stripped, and the top two available guys in the ratings, wherever they are, whether it's one or two or whatever, they get to fight for the belt, period. That way you just eliminate all of this nonsense. Nobody has still been able to give me a justifiable reason why there's a regular and an interim and all these different things except for just being the world champion. Then guys get elevated to certain statuses. It's just too many champions even within the sanctioning bodies. Like I don't have a problem with it being four belts, but it's just too many champions. And that's why these guys are, you know, even like they did the same thing to Devin Haney, like called him an email champion. I still don't know what he did wrong. All he did was want to fight the champion, and then he couldn't get a fight with him, and they gave him the belt. Like what is he supposed to do? Not take the belt? I still
Well,
don't get the logic behind that. Why people, ridicule that.
well, I mean, I'm with you 100%. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I do feel like um the complaints you having are a little inconsequential, only from the standpoint of, and listen, that's just how it is in boxing. Like they want to make the money, interim belts, regular belts. A lot of people don't agree with it, but it kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, but I guess my real next question to you would be, like, was it justifiable? Because if I'm not mistaken, with the IBF, you're only allowed to be an interim champion for 1 year. WBC, you could be an interim champ for like 47 years. Like the other sanctioning bodies, it's a little bit different. But I know with the IBF, you're typically only allowed to be a interim champ for about a year. And Duran got that belt, I believe it was in January or so, something like that. And full year hasn't passed yet. So do you think it was justifiable? Like, what exactly do you think? Because technically, not even technically, Crawford is obligated to, fight Spence again.
Um, I don't have all the bylaws in front of me, so I don't want to, step into a pile of mess and say something that's inaccurate, and have everybody like, well, he don't know what he was talking about. I'm really not sure. IBF is the one that they don't really even do interim champions. Like I can't even remember another interim champion in IBF except for maybe Andre Durrell a few years back. But other than that, I can't remember too many IBF interim champions. So I'm not sure what happened with Ennis getting the belt. I know Spence was the IBF champion for a long time. That's the belt that he won off of Kell Brook. So so I'm not sure what happened. I don't think it was justifiably done to Terrence Crawford because he just won the IBF belt.
Mhm.
Now, what was happening in between the time where Ennis was going through the ranks and becoming a mandatory, and whatever happened with Spence. Spence had, he fought in the unification. He was out for a while. He had the accidents and the injuries, so I think that probably had something to do with it. So I definitely don't think it was justifiable, justifiably done to Crawford because he just won the belt in June. But overall, Ennis was long overdue for a title shot, and they should have been forced a title shot, for Ennis because he was the mandatory for a minute. He's obviously, clearly the best contender at 145, 147 pounds, and he's the most deserving of a big title shot. So, it's good that that they stripped him and won the and gave him the belt, but I don't think it was justifiably done to Terrence Crawford. But it's just a mess because on one end you got a couple of the sanctioning bodies who, they don't really enforce mandatories like that, and then you got on the other end one that does force mandatories, and so you can't win for losing. It's like I see people criticizing Jamal Charlo for not defending his belts for 2.5 years. And okay, so then when the IBF come and does this, it's like, well, they move too fast. So I just think that, boxing again is so inconsistent with what it's doing, even though the IBF and the WBC are two different sanctioning bodies. When people see that, they don't realize that one is the IBF and the one is the WBC. They just see one champion being allowed to not defend his title for 2.5 years, and then they see another guy get stripped in three months or 5 months or however long it's been. And then it's just like, why did this one guy, why was he able to get away with it and the other one wasn't? So then you're going to have everybody always pointing out inconsistencies, which, it shouldn't even be any interim champions, in my opinion. And I'm sure Ennis would have loved to got a title shot and, tried to win his title in the ring, but, fate wouldn't have it that way for him. So I think it was unjustifiably done to Crawford, but overall, the kid should have been had a title shot, and I guess this is the way that they're making up for it. It's just it's messed up on all accounts because titles should be won in the ring, So I even I'm a fan of Boots and Crawford. I think that Boots is being cheated out of his moment. That's a great moment that everybody wants to enjoy and fulfill and hear and the new. That's a great moment, and I think he's being cheated out of his moment by the current system of boxing.
100%.